This is my job. I will not quit it. Pulled me out the depths when I thought that I was finished. And yet I question if I could go the distance. That's just the work regardless of who's listening. Listen. See, I was meant to be a warrior. Fight something amongst me. Leave here victorious. A classroom full of kids or a venue performing it.
Delilah was headed for the wrong side of the tracks, and in the days before railroads crisscrossed the Midwest, the only tracks in Missouri belonged to runaway slaves. Delilah worked, or daydreamed rather, alongside us in the tobacco field. Our plantation stretched serenely along the Missouri River, owned by Master Henry, a mild-mannered, dim-witted, and alcoholic specimen. The adjoining partition belonged to Master Dalrymple, a hot-headed, bald-headed, ambitious frontiersman who took pleasure in everything he overdid. Our masters were generous folk. They gave us liberal amounts of supper, hard labor, shelter, and solid beatings. Did this make them enemies or friends? Delilah was headed for trouble well before she changed her name. As a child, she stole candles from Master Henry so we could tell ghost stories. As an adolescent, she stole kisses from Master Dalrymple, and on her 14th birthday, she luxuriously resisted his cornucopia of chrysanthemums. "I'm not for sale," she coyly smiled. "Well," stammered the poor gentleman, "yes, technically you are." By her 15th birthday, Delilah had stolen Master Dalrymple's heart, and she got away with it too. It was Master Dalrymple who was arrested for trespassing on her neighbor's property, the legal nomenclature per Missouri State Constitution for taking the virginity of someone else's slave girl. Delilah had no interest in education, no interest until in 1847, the General Assembly outlawed all such learning for persons of color. The moment literacy became illegal, Delilah suddenly couldn't get enough of it. She stole Master Henry's Bible and spent weeks translating Exodus from English into fairy tales. She read how Moses dove into the Red Sea and seduced the mermaids with his magic staff. She read that stealing is against the Ten Commandments and promptly stole the Mrs. copy of Pride and Prejudice so she could have something more interesting to read. Most of us considered ourselves lucky because Master Henry was way too unimaginative to be sadistic. Our lashings and beatings were generally restricted to harvest time when we could never bundle the tobacco fast enough. Delilah's beatings, on the other hand, well, she never got any. Delilah had set the bar so unprecedentedly low that Master Henry was pleasantly surprised every time to find her doing work of any kind. Given her unrepresentative perspective on slavery, Delilah was indifferent toward emancipation. Indifferent, that is, until the Compromise of 1850, when Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act. The moment escaping to the North became federally criminalized, Delilah had to do it. "Should I sail across the water in a riverboat?" she ruminated casually. "Or you reckon I'm better off trying to walk across the water like that Jesus fellow?" "Shush," I scolded. "Pastor Farnham says it's a sin for slaves to run off. Says so in the Bible." "How do you know that's true if you never read the damn thing?" Not until the following year did railroad tracks come snaking across Missouri. On July 4th, 1851, the Pacific Railroad commemorated Independence Day with a groundbreaking ceremony to celebrate the American ideals of liberty and justice for some, slavery for others. "Them locomotives are about as stylish as a runaway ox cart wearing spectacles," sneered Delilah with derision. "If I ride any railroad out of this place, it's going to be the Underground Railroad." With the railroads came thousands of settlers who brought thousands of possessions, including portable libraries, cholera, slaves, ivory-studded bookcases, hemp seeds, and stories. Crazy stories from someone named Harriet Beecher Stowe about a slave girl who escaped downriver with her son. Crazy stories about someone named Harriet Tubman, who smuggled hundreds of slaves north out of Maryland. These were crazy stories that planted crazy, dangerous ideas in Delilah's head. That's it. I'm changing my name. Delilah, I protested. I don't go by that name anymore. My name's Harriet now. And who was there to contradict her? Not her birth certificate. She didn't have one. Not the Supreme Court, according to whom she wasn't technically a person. Delilah, Harriet rather, could call herself whatever she wanted. No sooner had she fashioned a new name for herself than Harriet felt compelled to set off and make a name for herself. That night, she dragged me from my straw-thatched mattress and hauled me into the unsuspecting darkness, stopping only to post a goodbye note on Master Henry's door. Dear Master Henry, I'm not running away. Think of it as a permanent vacation to Illinois, because your property is about as exciting as that book of Exodus. Love, Delilah. Quickly, she stole supplies for our getaway. Paper for a diary, candles for ghost stories, and then we stole quietly into the night. See that keelboat? Harriet pointed to a wooden vessel moored amid the shallows. That's how they'll come looking for us tomorrow. My eyes were wide with fear. How do we steer clear of it? Silly question, Harriet giggled. Come on, get in. We hid beneath the pall and canvas in the rear cabin and told ghost stories to assuage my trepidation. And come daybreak, the furious tandem of Masters Henry and Dalrymple made their way aboard and shoved off. They're headed downriver, sure as eggs, drawled Master Henry. How can you be sure? Left a note they were headed for Illinois. God knows where in tarnation she learned to write. While Master Henry lacked the senses of a bloodhound, he did manage single-handedly to smell, track down, and dispose of several flagons of whiskey on the foredeck. His intoxication progressed so rapidly that he would have been tipsy enough on dry land. Balance in midstream was out of the question. By the time our boat reached St. Louis County, he was obligated to sit lest he topple overboard. Master Dalrymple scanned the riverbanks and furrowed his brows. No sign of them two. We'll find them, proclaimed Master Henry. Riverbanks cleared of vegetation. Tain't nowhere to hide. Master Dalrymple joined in the consumption of whiskey and in sentimental conversation. You hear them upstart Republicans? He sighed. I hear they're fixing to outlaw slavery. Now this is a free country, Dalrymple. I'd like to see them try to take away my right to owning slaves. Shucks, them Negroes got no sense of discipline, ain't got no sense of proper speech, and they're supposed to govern themselves. It's a notion equally preposterous as marriage among sodomites or preposterous as a black president. It'll never happen. What Master Henry lacked in tracking ability, he made up for with opinions. Master Dalrymple, meanwhile, fretted that we had already escaped. Still no sign of them runaways. You reckon they're in Illinois already? Delilah can't even make it to church on time. No way she's reached the state line, reassured Master Henry, oblivious to the fact he'd given us a ride precisely there. We'll just drop anchor here and wait till we catch sight of them. I scurried off, too nervous to look back lest I turn into a pillar of salt. Harriet, however, paused just long enough to deposit one last goodbye note above the cabin door. Dearest Henry, further thanks for your generosity in giving me the tools to educate myself, and for giving me a ride to Illinois. Your friend, Harriet.